was Kyle here. I want to talk about a topic here, comparing some two movies here, from a fanboy to other fanboys out there. It's been said since last year, and well, the movies I'm going to compare, or in this topic basically, is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man to Mark Webb's The Amazing Spider-Man. And I'm going to compare these two movies and really give my thoughts as to which Spider-Man I like better. Now, according to some fans, when it was announced, a few years ago, that the entire trilogy of, well, the entire Spider-Man movie franchise would be rebooted with an entirely new cast, a lot of people said, what the hell? It's only been 10 years since the first one came out. Why reboot the entire movie with a new cast? A lot of people were in outrage. Me, on the other hand, I kind of saw this as a breath of fresh air, and boy, was it. Now, granted, The Amazing Spider-Man is the first of a new trilogy. A lot of people, in their opinion, a lot of people always say you can't compare one entry of a reboot franchise of anything, whether it's movies, games, or whatever, to a pre-existing trilogy. And noted, for me, I can easily make a comparison between The Amazing Spider-Man and all three of Sam Raimi's films. I won't do that. So to be fair, I'll just compare the first Spider-Man, which was released back in 2001 or 2, to the first Spider-Man movie here, and the differences. Now, to me, my favorite comic book superheroes of all time that I've read every comic book from have always been Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Man, Superman, and Batman. Those are comic books I've always read. But since this is more Marvel talk, Spider-Man, X-Men, and Iron Man have always been my two faves. So, when the original Spider-Man movie was announced, I was excited about it because that was my favorite comic book hero, and I've read all the comics, read the cartoons, had the toys, and everything else. I was a Spider-Man webhead. Saw the first movie, liked it. I didn't really know what to think of it at the time. Sometimes I thought it was cheesy, and I was like 10 years old at the time when the first movie came out. So, or a little bit younger. So when the first one came out, I'm like, okay, cool, Spider-Man's out. Don't know what to think about it, but I just wasn't hyped up about it. Then Spider-Man 2 came out, loved it. Spider-Man 3. Then The Amazing Spider-Man came out about a year ago or 2 years ago. And watching this, I'm like, this is how Spider-Man should be. A lot of people say that, Tobey Maguire is the best Spider-Man ever. Tobey Maguire, they should have replaced him with, Andrew Garfield and this, blah, 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 da, 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 da. To me, I like Tobey Maguire, but to me, Tobey Maguire did not emulate the character Spider-Man for me. That's just me. I think the reason why a lot of people are so hyped and bent over shape of Tobey Maguire being the best Spider-Man ever was because, well, he was the first Spider-Man ever. I mean, it's like Christopher Reeves playing Superman. No one fitted that role better. But anyone that comes after that, people are just going to kind of just be down towards him because they're like, you just can't, they're just stuck in the past, with whoever brought that character to life. So I think that kind of fits with Tobey Maguire and the Spider-Man thing. He was the first and only Spider-Man. So I think a lot of people are going to be biased towards that. I get that. But to me, I thought Andrew Garfield emulated the character Spider-Man much better than Tobey Maguire. One of the things I like about Amazing Spider-Man over the first Spider-Man was that you got to know the characters really well. It was more character driven. They got you emotionally invested, and you cared about the characters. A lot of people complained and say that, The Amazing Spider-Man is the same story, that Sam Raimi told 10 years ago, but just stretched out for like the first hour and a half. And to me, a lot of people complained about that. I didn't see a problem with it because, one, what Mark Webb did is not a cop-out to Sam Raimi. They both taken the same story of Spider-Man and how Peter Parker became Spider-Man, but they're telling it in a different way. So it's not like what Sam Raimi wrote for the first Spider-Man was just his idea completely. It was just all original. No, he had a source, which was the comic books. So I don't understand when people complain about that. Secondly, I learned to appreciate him becoming Spider-Man better in Mark Webb's film, because in my opinion, the first 15 minutes of Peter Parker in Sam Raimi's film, the first Spider-Man here, he gets bit by the spider. After he gets bit by the spider, the next day he's wrestling with Randy Savage, and after he wrestles with Randy Savage, Uncle gets killed. Bam, he's Spider-Man now. He's taking down the bad guy. With great power comes great responsibility. But in The Amazing Spider-Man, after which he had gotten his powers and everything else, Peter Parker was still a screw-up. He didn't know the right thing to do right away. And even after his Uncle Ben died, Parker was a bit douchey. He didn't get that whole heroic stuff, with great power comes great responsibility crap. His priority, he was selfish with his powers. He used his powers to find the killer of his uncle. He put that first and made that priority amongst everything else until, he met with the kid on the bridge and kind of looked at things a different perspective. So because of that, it made Peter Parker's transition into the role in the shoes of a hero, you learn to appreciate it a little bit more. Whereas in Sam Raimi, bit by the spider, wears the mask, I'm Spider-Man. It's like, it just rushed. It's like, okay. But here, you appreciate a little bit more of Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. Another thing I also liked about it was that, now I'm not going to talk about animation because this obviously kicks this one's butt in terms of animation, CGI technology. Only granted, because this was back in 2001, where animation was really starting to pick up, really, in the Hollywood movie scene. So I'm not going to talk about animation on that. To me, I don't think Tobey Maguire was funny as Spider. I mean, he said some little funny stuff like that, but to me, he was a freaking crybaby. To me, I mean, really, he cried all the time. The Mary Jane, I love her. You didn't get that with Peter Parker in here. Parker was not a whiny douche. Okay, he was nerdy, but he wasn't a crybaby. So that's what I loved about this. Then also people complain this is Spider-Man trying to take the Batman Dark Knight story. Noted, the Amazing Spider-Man is based off the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books, loosely based off the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books, where that version of the comics speaks more about Peter Parker's parents and the mystery of his father. So once again, not taking anything that hasn't been done already, is taking something off a source comic book. Another thing I really hate about Sam Raimi's films is that he kills all the villains in all the Spider-Man movies, from Green Goblin to Venom. What's his name? Doc Ock. He kills all the villains, and it's like, what the hell? Like, you kill all the villains? Now, know that Green Goblin does die in the comic books, but Doc Ock, really? Venom, really? He just kills off the villains, just kills them all and just goes on. So it's like, okay, once Spider-Man's done killing all of his villains, does that mean he's retires as being Spider-Man now? He's done. He hangs up the mask and boots because there are no more villains to, it messes up the complete aura and anthology and everything that is Spider-Man and the Spider-Man universe. So that's one thing I always hate about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films. He kills all of his villains when some of them don't even die. Another thing, this really isn't based much on comic book sources and material. I will say the way Green Goblin died, that was based off the comic book with the whole church thing and whatnot. But other than that, this really is, a lot of Sam Raimi's films, all the Spider-Man movies, really aren't comic book based. This here, even though I will say some things in here aren't as well as you could say a direct cop-out to, a comic, it's closer, the things they do in this movie is closer to the comic books, and even for stuff that's been released for the next movie, it's closer to the comics than you're going to get compared to Sam Raimi's films. I'm sorry. A lot of people gripe to complain about the new costume design. I love the costume design. I mean, I thought it was great. A new, fresh perspective of Spider-Man needs new costume. Noted in the second one, though, he's going to have one that's more original to the Sam Raimi's. But, so that's another thing a lot of people complain about. Other things people complain about, they're like, oh, Peter Parker in a high school setting. I like that for a change because it gives Peter Parker more of a challenge. Not just a challenge with his powers and fighting villains, but typical things that an average teenager, you know, will go through. I mean, it's not like, you know, once, okay, now that I have powers as Spider-Man now, you know, I'm completely focused on this. But everything else that surrounds me, you know, and being human and, you know, living life as a teenager, all those things are null and void now because I have superpowers. So it just blocks out all that human emotion and trials and tribulations that we go through in life. No. I mean, just no. And Peter Parker kind of avoided that in Sam Raimi's films. I mean, he was in high school for like 20 minutes of the movie. And then, like, at the end of the movie, he graduates from college. I mean, it's like, it just, in Mark Webb's film, you felt more sorry for Uncle Ben dying because you got to know Uncle Ben more. So him dying, you felt bad for him. In Sam Raimi's film, I could care less that Uncle Ben died or how he died. It didn't matter to me. It's just like, they're like, okay, Uncle Ben's dead. Cut to the next scene. You're Spider-Man now. You know what to do now, Parker. There was no emotion. There was no connection to the characters. In my opinion, I think Mark Webb's Spider-Man kicked Sam Raimi's Spider-Man's ass. At least the first one, because like I said, a lot of people will complain, you can't compare a trilogy to just one film. I'm comparing it just to the original. It kicked Sam Raimi's butt. In my opinion, how I've always said, and I still stick by the fact, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man's movies are good, but they're not a good, how should I say, vision of the Spider-Man character. Sam Raimi's movies, I think, or Spider-Man films, I think are more for fans that are movie buffs, people that just like action and just explosions and just like, oh, you know, just big explosions and whatnot. And people that were fans of Spider-Man, but not really hardcore Spider-Man fans. They just went no further beyond, let's say, a couple of toys and the cartoon. That's it. But I think Sam Raimi's film is, Mark Webb's film is more for the hardcore Spider-Man fans, the fans that watch the shows and read the comic books and that want a Spider-Man to represent the way they envision him and the way they've known about him through the comic books. Because if it wasn't for the comic books, Spider-Man never would have had cartoons and everything else. So it all starts with the comics. So I think this is for more of the hardcore Spider-Man fans, and I think Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is more for the people that like Spider-Man, but they really don't care much about, you know, it being related to comic books or source material. They just watch it for the big explosions and just for the action. Yeah, they don't care about the characters and stuff, just explosions. So you guys give me your opinions. What do you like better, The Amazing Spider-Man by Mark Webb or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man? Did you think the series needed a reboot? Yes or no? And who did you like better, Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire as the Webb head? Me, I think Tobey Maguire did a smacking job performance and playing a younger version of Peter Parker. Loved it. Can't wait for the sequel. Let me know what you think in the box below. Subscribe. Peace.